This video is to introduce you to Hipaa, also called the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, but normally we just call it Hipaa. First of all, what is Hipaa? This was adopted in 1996, and it's a law excuse me, that provides health care related individuals, so doctors, nurses, hospitals, nursing homes, anybody who might be have any contact with your health information, giving them standards on how to do electronic health care records. We do live in a digital age. We also have a lot of people trying to hack into electronic things, and so this kind of set the groundwork and the standards for that. Hipaa mandates that the federal privacy protections for individuals will be covered under this privacy rule. And the privacy rule specifically regulates how medical professionals and other people how they can use your medical information, who is allowed to access your medical information. Your specific personal protected health information is called your PHI. So everybody who's ever been to the doctor, born, who has any type of medical record, you somewhere have a PHI. What information is protected? So an individual's identification has to be kept confidential. So that could be any number of things: your name, your address, birth date, your social security number. It could be any type of health condition or mental health condition that you've had in the past, the present, or potentially could have maybe the genetic predisposition for in the future. Any healthcare service that you have been provided, so anytime you go to the doctor and they take notes, all of that is confidential. And any type of payment that you have made for that healthcare service is also under this confidential Hipaa as well. Now, as far as maintaining that confidentiality, professionals are supposed to take all precautions that they possibly can on keeping your health care information that could identify you confidential. So they are supposed to take every precaution necessary and possible. In other words, they are not to speak about their patients with any identifying information. So they might say, I had a patient yesterday with a broken leg, but they couldn't say, Mrs. Prater came in yesterday with a broken leg. So they may talk about the patient's illness or whatever without identifying the person with it. That's okay. But they're not allowed to identify the person as they're talking about them. With even professionals, with even other doctors, unless that doctor is also medically treating that individual, but just to talk about a specific incident, no, they cannot. They also can't leave any of your public records unattended. This was actually in the news just not that long ago, where I do believe it was Parkview got in trouble for leaving past medical records from a doctor who I believe had retired on the back porch of his, I don't know, daughter's house or something like that. And they were there all weekend because she wasn't home, so nobody signed for them. They were not protected. They were just left unattended out in the open, and they were actually they had to pay a fine for that. They broke this Hipaa. Professionals must also make reasonable efforts to avoid being overheard. So, they shouldn't be talking about, if they were talking about a patient and they needed to use names, they wouldn't want to talk maybe in a general location where other people could overhear them. So they have to be very careful on where they speak and who they speak to. So they can only provide your family members with information that you've allowed them to. Now, if you're underage, that's different. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But for instance, my husband, they wouldn't be able to share my information with him without my direct permission. And professionals are permitted to communicate with patients regarding their healthcare information by phone or by email, but they are not allowed to leave messages with family members. They're not allowed to leave messages on voicemail. So they couldn't call my house and say, Mrs. Prater, we've received your blood work back and you tested positive for such and such. They wouldn't be able to do that. They could leave a message that says, this is your doctor, please call us back at your earliest convenience. That would be fine. But they're not allowed to just leave medical information like that on an answering machine. Now, when can information be shared? There are times where legally they can share information, and that would be in the following instances. If they are providing information needed for payment, so for instance, if someone has health insurance, they would provide the health insurance company with what procedure or what was done at the doctor's office so that that could be properly paid for. They can also provide certain agencies information about your specific health in the following situations. If it's controlling an infectious disease, for instance, if someone has MRSA or Ebola or some type of communicable disease where it can be easily spread and they would be worried about it spreading, that would definitely be reported. Preventing injury, so if they feel that someone might be thinking about suicide or something in that, so preventing them from injuring themselves. Also preventing from child abuse or neglect. So if they see a child come in with bruises or breaks or things that just really aren't explained or the excuses are kind of hokey, they definitely could report that and would be legally required to report that, and that would not be breaking the confidentiality even though the child or the adult hasn't given them permission. And also if they think that you're going to be any type of a public threat, public safety. Some other reasons: workman's compensation. If you're injured at work, your employer will pay for time off. If you're injured at work, well, your employer is going to need to know what happened, what are your injuries, how many days do you need off, those types of things. So that would be providing them some health information with that they can provide without needing your approval to do so. Any type of legal proceedings, so if something's going to be going to court, they can provide information in certain legal cases. Providing law enforcement agencies with information so that they could apprehend someone. So if there's certain information that would help them, with a missing person or with someone who's wanted, maybe it's, that they are diabetic, or maybe it's that they have a certain scar from a surgery at a certain location, whatever that might be, just whatever might help them, recognize someone. And then also assisting individuals who are underage. So for instance, my son is 10. There is, they are legally allowed to give me information about him because he's underage and can't make medical decisions on his own. Also with assisting agencies in disaster relief, so if like Hurricane Katrina, for instance, people were wondering, is my family okay? Where are they? They can provide your condition, your status, where are you, what hospital have you been taken to, those types of things. And anytime someone has deceased, they can provide the coroner or the medical examiner who's doing an autopsy any information that might be necessary, like dental records, or if you do have a certain genetic disorder that the medical examiner is going to find, the doctor can provide information to the medical examiner in those cases. So there are several ways that HIPAA can be broken. Information can be shared legally without the doctor being or nurse or medical agency being in trouble.